Hello, welcome back to the second session of the watercolour course. Today we're going to be looking at trees. We're going to be using the sharpened stick again as a drawing tool and doing some splattering techniques. Here are some examples. So sort of simple tree, and as I said earlier, it might be a good idea if you have an image of a tree or can look at a tree to sort of look at some different shapes before we start. Okay. So I'm going to now show you how to use your stick to create a tree. Okay, so I've got an image of a tree just as a little guide to sort of look at. It's nice to sort of see an overall shape of your tree before you start. And I'm going to be, using the sharpened stick again as a drawing tool. I'm going to be using burnt umber and Prussian blue. But any blue or brown would be absolutely fine for this. Okay, so I'm going to start off with the brown, and the blue is just going to be used to sort of add tonal contrast really and sort of shadow to your tree. So start off getting plenty of paint on your stick and actually start at the bottom and just wiggle your stick around and the paint will gradually run out, and I tend to just start here at the bottom and wiggle a little bit. Now some of this looks a little bit faint. I know it's not showing up very well, but I'll have to beef this up a little bit, and I'm just going to come out with some other little sort of stair. Just starting to build up a bit of shape at the moment. And then I'm going to refine this in a moment. Okay, so I've got a bit of a shape going on. I'm just looking, I need some of these coming down a bit lower, a lot lower actually, because this tree is actually very little stunted hawthorn tree growing on Dartmoor, so it's quite wide actually and low coming out here. And what I'm going to start doing now is I start working back in and a bit more definite marks with the brown to start building up a bit of a shape here. And what I'm going to start doing is start working back into some of these areas to make them into thicker branches. Just using the side of the stick slightly, just to bring those out. Start refining these. And this will get more definition when I start adding the dark blue as well actually. Just come along, put some little twiggy ends on your branches. And obviously, depending on how much foliage you want to put on your trees, if these branches will end up showing an awful lot or not really. If you're going to do lots of splattering over the top of this, then obviously you don't need quite so much definition in these branches. So I'm just building this up. I'm going to carry on and build this up with the brown paint. Okay, now I've built up the branches with the brown paint, and now what I'm going to do is actually then I'm going to work back into the trunk of the tree and actually start adding a bit more interesting shape to this trunk to make it slightly more gnarled and curvy looking, and maybe add a little bit of texture, just a few scratchy marks. Working back into it. That's better. It's got a bit more of an interesting shape going on now. I actually just come and just put a little bit so it's actually the tree sitting on something, so it could be a suggestion of the roots coming out of the bottom of the tree and some sort of bank or something that it might be sitting onto. There we are. this little bit come out just a bit. That's more interesting, isn't it? Just come out a bit more. A bit more down here. Just playing around. That's more. There we are, playing around a little bit more with that shape. Right, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to start working in a little bit with some blue. Okay, so I'm going to be using some dark Prussian blue, and I'm going to be deciding which side of the tree is lighter than the other. So I'm going to make this half of the tree, this is my right hand side of the tree lighter, and the left hand side a little bit dark. So going in with the dark blue, I'm going to come in and do basically some shading really down here with some, you might think it sounds a bit strange putting blue on a tree, but actually brown and blue work very well together. Just adding a little bit of shading on here. And I'm going to come down and add a few little twiggy bits with the blue as well. Just, I think, makes it a bit more interesting. So I'm just going to work my way around. I'm working predominantly on the left hand side of the branches, and then just coming up and curving and putting a few little twiggy bits with the blue as well. And I will finish that off and show you the next stage. Okay, so I'm now going to show you adding some foliage. I'm going to be using some yellow and blue, but you can use rusty sort of autumny shades of sort of rusty browns and oranges and yellows. You could use pinks for blossom, you could use nice dark reds for berries, whatever you fancy really. I'm going to use some lemon yellow and some Prussian blue, which I've already used on the tree. I'm going to do some splatters in different colours and then hopefully let them merge a little bit to create different shades of green. So I'm going to start off splattering just using a brush. Just as I showed you in the first session, you can sort of bang this against your finger, or we can use a palette knife, which I'm going to go to in a moment as well. I'm now going to swap to a palette knife, I think. A bit more on there. And I'm going to go into with some blues, and I'm going to see if I can get the colours to merge, and I'm going to show you by splattering with some water, or if you've got a little water spray, you can use a little water spray. You can very lightly add some water and let the paint run a little bit, which lets the colours merge a bit more. I'm going in with some blue. Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to get some clean water on my palette knife, and I'm going to ping some water on. And by pinging the water on, the paint obviously is going to be wet, and let it run a little bit and the colours will start merging a bit more. So all I'm doing is pinging on clean water, and because the paint's wetting and merging, it's giving it a bit more definition. So you can use a little spray bottle, but I have found actually that you get a bit more control by doing it this way with a palette knife, because you can just do a little bit at a time, whereas when you have a spray it's a bit random and it can be a bit too much sometimes, and it's quite hard to then get it back again and take the water away if you have too much. nicely. There. Hopefully you can see that that's let the paints merge. I will actually just hold that a bit close to the camera, see if you can see that. The paints have sort of merged. You get some quite nice little splatters of different colour as the paints sort of merge together, which can be quite nice. The other thing you can do, just to finish this off a little bit if you want to, is we can go and make a few little grassy stems just down the base of the tree. I'm going to use my stick again, get some yellow and some blue. I'm just going to come in, just do a few little squiggles, and then I'm going to go in with some blue in a second, a little few on this side as well, make them a little bit more squiggly. I have to come in with a little bit of blue. I might just come in with my palette knife and just do a few little scrapes through as well. And I think I'm just going to wet the bottom of that just a tiny bit to let it merge and run a bit. So just going to wet in there a little bit, let that run down a bit, soften that off, that's better. Not such a definite mark in there, just a little bit of water. Let some of that colour come down. There we are. There. And I think that we're done. Okay, so here's the pictures I showed you at the beginning. So this one is done exactly the same way, but this time I've actually splattered a little bit of red on here, and this one hasn't got any splatters on at all. It's much more of a wintry tree. Okay, so just to remind you of what we've just done, and hopefully you enjoy that, enjoy practicing. Try looking at some different shapes of trees. Try different colours you can try different shades of brown, different shades of blue, different shades of colour for the foliage. And if you do Facebook, maybe you'd like to share what you do on our Art for All page, and the details will be coming up. In the next session, I'm going to be showing you putting all these different techniques together to create a much more developed picture. Okay, enjoy. Bye.